The heat hit Jinho's face like a hammer. His eyes opened slowly, everything hurt. His mouth felt like sand. His head pounded like drums. Where was he? Jinho tried to move his hands. They would not move. He looked down. Metal ropes tied his hands to thick metal stakes in the ground. His feet were tied too. The metal was hot from the sun. It burned his skin. No, 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 he said out loud. His voice was dry and broken. He remembered now, the mining station. His boss, Manager KO, the secret boxes in the ship, the angry voices. Then darkness. They left him here to die. Jinho looked around. Red sand went on forever in all directions. 2 suns burned in the purple sky above him. This was the Crimson Desert on planet Kepler 442b, the hottest, driest place on the planet. No one came here. No one lived here. His work clothes were torn and dirty. His tool belt was gone. Even his water bottle was missing. The mining company patch on his shirt was half ripped off. It said Kim J, Chief Mechanic. Some chief mechanic he was now. The metal stakes were driven deep into the hard ground. Jinho pulled and pulled. They did not move. The metal ropes were too tight. They cut into his skin when he moved. Think, Jinho, he said to himself. You fix machines every day. You can fix this. He had been a mechanic for 10 years. First on Earth, then on the space stations, now here on this hot planet. He could fix anything with engines, wires, or metal parts. But being tied up in a desert was different from fixing a broken ship. The twin suns moved higher in the sky. The heat got worse. Sweat ran down his face and back. His shirt was already wet. Soon he would have no water left in his body. Jinho closed his eyes and thought about what happened yesterday. He was working under the big cargo ship when he heard voices. Manager KO was talking to someone. Jinho could not see who. They were moving boxes from the ship to a small transport. The draconian weapons will make us rich, Manager KO said. The rebels will pay good money for these. Jinho's blood went cold. Draconian weapons were banned. The Galactic Union said no one could sell them. People who sold them went to prison for life. What about the mechanic? Another voice asked. Jinho knows too much, Manager KO said. We cannot let him talk. That was when Jinho tried to run. But KO's men were fast. They hit him on the head. Everything went black, and now he was here, tied up like an animal. Left to die in the desert heat. The metal stakes were getting hotter. Soon they would burn his skin badly. Jinho had to think fast. He looked at the metal ropes around his hands. They were not really ropes. They were thin metal cables, like the ones used to lift heavy things on the mining station. But these cables had small electronic locks. Red lights blinked on the locks. Electronic locks, Jinho said. Everything electronic gets hot in the sun. He had seen this before. When electronic things got too hot, they stopped working right. Sometimes they broke completely. Jinho stopped pulling at the cables. Instead, he pushed his hands toward the hot metal stakes. The cables touched the burning hot metal. The electronic locks were right against the stakes. Now it hurt. The hot metal burned his skin, but Jinho did not move away. He pressed harder. Come on, he said through his teeth. Break, you stupid things. The heat from the stakes went into the electronic locks. The red lights started blinking faster, then slower. Then they went out. Click, click. The locks opened. Jinho's hands were free. He quickly opened the locks on his feet. The metal cables fell away. He stood up too fast. His head spun. He almost fell down, but he was free. Jinho looked at his hands. They had red marks from the hot metal. His wrists had cuts from the cables. But he was alive. The first thing he needed was shade. The sun was getting higher and hotter. Jinho took off his torn work shirt. He found 2 pieces of broken metal near the stakes. He pushed them into the sand and tied his shirt between them. It made a small shade. Under the shade, Jinho looked around the desert again. Nothing but red sand and rocks. But wait. In the distance, something was different. There were tall things sticking up from the sand. They were not rocks. They were too straight, too smooth. and they were shining with a strange blue light. What are those? Jinho asked himself. Then he heard something that made his heart stop. A roar. Long and loud and full of pain. It came from the direction of the shining things, but it was not the roar of any animal Jinho knew. It was deeper, stranger. It sounded almost like a machine breaking down, but also like a living thing crying for help. The roar came again. This time, 2 more voices joined it. 3 creatures, all calling out in pain and fear. Jinho stood up. Every smart part of his brain said to walk the other way, to find water and shelter and try to survive until someone found him. But Jinho had always been the kind of person who ran toward problems, not away from them. When machines broke, he fixed them. When people needed help, he helped them, and something out there in the desert needed help very badly. He picked up his shirt and the metal pieces. The sun was getting hotter, but Jinho started walking toward the strange blue lights and the sounds of pain. He did not know that this walk would change his life forever. He did not know that the creatures calling for help were not from this world, and he did not know that in a few hours he would become the most famous human in the galaxy. Jinho walked across the hot sand toward the blue lights. Each step was hard work. The sand was deep and soft. His feet sank down with every step. The heat from the ground went through his work boots. The roars came again. They were closer now, and sadder, like something was dying slowly. After an hour of walking, Jinho saw what was making the blue lights. It was not rocks or plants, it was a ship. But not like any ship he had ever seen. The ship was huge, maybe as big as 3 cargo ships put together. But it was not made of metal like human ships. It looked like it was grown, not built. The surface was smooth and curved like a giant egg. Parts of it were buried deep in the sand. Blue lights ran along lines on the ship's surface. The lights moved like water flowing through tubes, but some of the lights were broken. They flickered on and off. Some parts of the ship were completely dark. This ship is dying, Jinho said out loud. He had seen enough broken machines to know when something was failing. The ship was failing badly. The roars came from inside the ship. Jinho walked around it looking for a way in. The ship had no doors that he could see, no windows, just smooth surface with the flowing blue lights. Then he found a hole. Part of the ship was cracked open like a broken egg. The hole was big enough for him to climb through. "Hello?" Jinho called into the hole. "Is anyone in there?" The roars stopped. Everything was quiet. Jinho took a deep breath and climbed through the hole. Inside the ship was dark and cool. The air tasted strange, like metal and flowers mixed together. Blue lights ran along the walls, but they were dim and flickering. Jinho walked forward slowly. His eyes got used to the dark. The inside of the ship was even stranger than the outside. The walls curved like the inside of a giant shell. Everything was smooth and organic looking. Then he saw them. 3 creatures lay on the floor of a large room. They were the most beautiful and terrible things Jinho had ever seen. They looked like dragons from old Earth stories. But they were real. And they were huge. Each one was as long as a small spaceship. Their bodies were covered in scales that looked like liquid metal. The scales changed color in the dim blue light, but these dragons were different from the stories. Metal and wires were built into their bodies. Tubes ran under their scales. Lights blinked on devices attached to their heads and necks. They were part machine, part animal, and they were dying. The largest dragon had golden scales and a long neck. Its eyes were closed. A device on its chest blinked red. Red always meant danger. The second dragon was smaller, with silver scales. It breathed. In short, quick breaths. Wires from its head device sparked sometimes. The third dragon was the smallest, but it looked the strongest. Its scales were dark blue, almost black, but its wing was bent wrong. A large metal plate on its back was cracked and leaking blue fluid. All 3 dragons had the same problem. The machines built into their bodies were breaking down. Jinho stepped closer. The largest dragon's eyes opened. They were bright green like emeralds. They looked at Jinho with intelligence and surprise. The dragon tried to lift its head. It made a sound, but not a roar this time. It sounded almost like speech, but in no language Jinho knew. Easy, Jinho said softly. I am here to help. He did not know if the dragon understood his words, but his voice was calm and gentle. The dragon's eyes followed him as he moved closer. Jinho looked at the machine on the dragon's chest. It was like nothing he had ever seen, but machines were machines. They all had the same basic parts: power source, control circuits, input and output connections. This machine had all those things, but it was built with technology far beyond anything humans had made. The metal was too smooth. The connections were too small and perfect. The power readings on small displays showed numbers that made no sense, but Jinho could see what was wrong. The power connections were loose. Blue energy leaked out like blood from a cut. The control circuits were overheating. Small fires burned inside the clear panels. Your machines are not getting enough power, Jinho said to the dragon. And the heat is killing the control systems. The dragon made soft sounds. It almost sounded like it was trying to answer him. Jinho looked around. The room. The ship's power system was failing too. The blue lights on the walls were getting dimmer. Whatever made this ship work was running out of energy. Okay, big guy, Jinho said. Let me see what I can do. He knelt next to the dragon's chest device. Up close, he could see it better. The loose power connections were held by clamps that had vibrated open. Maybe from the ship's crash? Jinho pressed the clamps closed with his fingers. Immediately, the red warning light stopped blinking. Blue energy flowed back into the machine. The dragon's breathing got easier. That is one down, Jinho said. But fixing the loose connections was only the first step. The machines were still overheating, and Jinho could see that all three dragons had the same problems. The silver dragon made a weak sound. Its eyes were starting to close. Hang on, Jinho said. I am coming. He moved to the second dragon. This one's problems were worse. The head device was smoking. The wires were melting from too much heat. Jinho knew about heat problems. Machines broke when they got too hot. They needed cooling, but what could cool machines this advanced? Then he remembered something. His torn shirt was still wet with sweat. Water cooled things down. Jinho took off his shirt and pressed it against the smoking device. Steam rose up, but the machine stopped smoking. The silver dragon's eyes opened. They were blue like sapphires. The dragon looked at Jinho and made a sound that almost sounded like, "Thank you." Two dragons were stable now. But the third one, the dark blue dragon with the broken wing, was in the worst shape. Blue fluid leaked from the cracked plate on its back. That fluid was probably its lifeblood, and Jinho had no idea how to fix that. Jinho stared at the cracked metal plate on the dark blue dragon's back. Blue fluid leaked out slowly. Each drop that fell made a soft hissing sound when it hit the floor. This is bad, he said, really bad. The dark blue dragon's breathing was getting weaker. Its eyes were barely open. Whatever the blue fluid was, the dragon needed it to live. Jinho touched the edge of the cracked plate. It was warm and smooth. The crack went deep, almost to the dragon's spine. Under the crack, he could see complex machines mixed with what looked like living tissue. These dragons were not just machines. They were not just animals either. They were both at the same time. How do I fix something like this? Jinho asked himself. That was when something amazing happened. The largest dragon, the one with golden scales, raised its head. It looked directly at Jinho. Then it did something that should have been impossible. It spoke inside. Jinho's mind. Do not be afraid, a voice said in his head. The voice was deep and calm. I'm speaking to your thoughts. Jinho jumped back. What? How? My name is Veltar. I am a prince of the draconian people. The silver dragon is my sister Nara. The wounded one is Kale, my loyal guard. Jinho shook his head. This is crazy. Dragons do not talk. And they do not talk in my head. We are not dragons as you understand them. We are draconians. We come from the stars like you. But our bodies are different. We can share thoughts with other intelligent beings. You mean telepathy? Jinho had read about telepathy in science books. Some scientists thought it might be possible. But no one had ever proved it. Yes, that is your word for it. I am translating our language into yours so we can speak. Jinho looked at the silver dragon. She was watching him with her blue eyes. That is Nara, Veltar said. She wants to thank you for helping us. You saved her life. I just fixed some loose wires, Jinho said. Anyone could have done it. No, only someone with great skill and knowledge could have understood our technology so quickly. Our machines are very different from yours. Jinho looked around the strange ship. Where do you come from? How did you get here? We come from the Draco system, many light years from here. We were fleeing from a war. Images appeared in Junho's mind. He saw beautiful cities floating in space. He saw dragons flying between the stars. But he also saw explosions and fighting and cities burning. Our people are fighting each other, Veltar explained. There is a dragon called Veximer. He wants to rule all Draconians. He killed my father, the king. Now he hunts me and my family? So you are running away, Jinho said. We were trying to reach the outer worlds where we would be safe. But Veximer's ships found us. They damaged our vessel. We barely escaped. More images filled Jinho's mind. He saw the ship he was in now, flying. Through space, he saw other ships chasing it. He saw weapons firing and the ship getting hit. We crashed here 3 days ago, Veltar continued. Our life support systems are failing. Without them, we will die. Jinho looked at Kale, the dark blue dragon. What about him? The blue fluid? Kale threw himself in front of an energy blast meant for me. The damage to his biomechanical systems is severe. The fluid you see is his life essence mixed with machine coolant. If we cannot stop the leak, he will die. Jinho knelt beside Kale again. The dragon's eyes opened slightly. Even though he could not speak telepathically like Veltar, Jinho could see the pain and courage in those eyes. What do you need to fix him? Jinho asked. The biometal that our systems are made from is not found on this planet. We need a substitute. Something that can bond with both living tissue and advanced electronics. Jinho thought hard. What materials could do that? Most metals were either good for electronics or good for living things, but not both. Then he remembered something. The strange blue lights outside. The tall crystal formations in the desert. The crystals, he said. The glowing things outside, what are they? Veltar's eyes brightened. You notice them? They are dilithium crystals. They grow naturally on some planets. They can store and conduct energy very efficiently. Could they work for fixing Kale? Perhaps. If we could refine them and shape them properly. But we do not have the tools. Our ship's fabrication systems are damaged, Jinho grinned. This was the kind of problem he understood. I do not need fancy fabrication systems. I need heat, pressure, and the right materials. You think you can make biometal from dilithium crystals? I do not know what biometal is, but I know how to work with metals and crystals. If these dilithium crystals can conduct energy, then maybe I can forge them into something that will seal Kale's wound. Nara made soft sounds. Veltar translated. She says that is impossible. Our biometal takes advanced technology to create. It requires precise temperatures and electromagnetic fields. Maybe your people need advanced technology, Jinho said. But humans are good at making things work with whatever we have. He looked around the ship. In the dim light, he could see broken panels and damaged equipment. But there were also things. He could use power cells, heating elements, metal tools. You would risk your life to save Kale? Veltar asked. You do not even know us. Someone left me to die in this desert, Jinho said. You did not. And anyway, fixing things is what I do. He stood up and headed toward the hole in the ship. I need to get some of those crystals. And I need to figure out how to make a forge hot enough to work with them. The crystal formations are dangerous, Veltar warned. There are guardian machines, left by an ancient race. They protect the crystals from intruders. Jinho paused at the hole. Guardian machines? Automated defense systems. They will try to stop you. Are they broken? Jinho asked. I do not think so. Why? Jinho smiled. Because if they are machines, then I can probably fix them. And if I can fix them, I can probably reprogram them too. He climbed through the hole into the desert heat. Behind him he heard Veltar say something that sounded amazed. Sister, I think we may have found the legendary human ingenuity our grandfather told us about. The crystal formations were even more amazing up close. They rose from the desert sand like frozen blue lightning. Some were as tall as buildings, others were thin like needles. All of them glowed with soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Jinho walked carefully between the crystals. The air around them felt different. It made his skin tingle. His hair stood up like he was near a strong electrical field. These things are full of energy, he said to himself. He reached out to touch the nearest crystal. It was warm and smooth. When his fingers made contact, the blue light got brighter for a moment. That was when he heard the humming sound. Something was moving behind the crystals. Jinho crouched down and looked around a large crystal formation. 3 machines floated toward him. They were round like balls, about the size of his head. Metal arms stuck out from their sides. Red lights blinked where their eyes should be. They hummed as they moved through the air. Guardian machines. Just like Veltar had warned him about, the machines spread out in a line. They pointed their metal arms at Jinho. Energy began to glow at the tips of the arms. Stop, one of them said, in a mechanical voice. This area is restricted. Leave now or face destruction. Jinho raised his hands. Wait, I am not here to steal anything. I just need a small piece of crystal to save a life. Negative. All crystal formations are protected. You have 10 seconds to leave. The energy at the tips of their arms got brighter. Jinho could feel the heat from where he stood. Okay, he said. I am leaving. But instead of running away, Jinho studied the machines as they followed him. They were old, very old. Their metal bodies had scratches and dents. Some of their red lights flickered. One of them made a grinding noise when it moved. These machines had been guarding the crystals for a long time. And like all old machines, they probably had problems. Jinho backed away until he was out of their patrol area. The Guardians stopped following him and returned to the crystals. Ancient machines, Jinho said, which means old programming. And old programming always has bugs. He sat in the sand and thought, how could he get past machines that would shoot him? He needed to be smarter than they were. Then he remembered something from his training. Most security systems had safety protocols, rules to prevent them from causing accidents. Jinho picked up a small rock and threw it at the crystal formation. The rock bounced off a crystal with a ringing sound. Immediately, the 3 Guardian machines flew toward the sound. They searched for intruders where the rock had hit. Motion sensors, Jinho said. They react to movement near the crystals. He threw another rock, this time to the other side of the formation. The machines flew to investigate. And they investigate every disturbance. Good. Jinho started throwing rocks in different directions. The Guardian machines flew back and forth, chasing each sound. They were getting confused. Their old programming was not designed to handle multiple false alarms. After 10 minutes of this, one of the machines started smoking. Another began flying. In circles, the third one was making loud grinding noises. Overloaded, Jinho said with satisfaction. Just like I thought. While the machines were distracted and malfunctioning, Jinho crept between the crystals. He found a small crystal formation that had broken pieces at its base. Perfect. He gathered several pieces of the glowing blue crystal and put them in his pockets. They were warm and light like pieces of glass filled with electricity, but as he turned to leave, the Guardian machine spotted him. Intruder detected, they said together. Initiating termination protocol, their weapons charged up, but something was wrong. The machines moved slowly and jerkily. Their overloaded systems were failing. Jinho had an idea. A crazy idea. Instead of running, he walked straight toward the nearest Guardian machine. Emergency override, he said in a loud, official voice. I am Chief Engineer Kim. These crystals are needed for a medical emergency. The machine stopped. Its red lights blinked rapidly. Chief Engineer Kim not recognized. Please provide authorization code. Authorization code is ... Jinho thought fast. What would an ancient computer system use for emergency codes? 000. Medical emergency override? Invalid code, the machine said. But it sounded uncertain. Jinho stepped closer. Look, your systems are overloaded. You are malfunctioning. I can help fix you, but only if you let me take these crystals to save a life. Fix ... The machine asked. We have been operational for 847 years. No maintenance has been performed. And it shows, Junho said. When was the last time anyone cleaned your sensors? Or updated your programming? You are running on ancient software. The machine's lights blinked more slowly. Systems are experiencing difficulties. Let me help, Junho said. He reached toward the machine. I am very good with computers. The machine did not shoot him. Instead, it lowered its weapons. Medical emergency has priority over security protocols, but any repairs must be approved by the central authority. The central authority has been gone for hundreds of years, Jinho said gently. You have been alone here all this time, doing your job with no support. That is very impressive. We ... We have done our duty, the machine said. It sounded sad. Jinho spent the next hour working on the Guardian machines. He cleaned their sensors with his shirt. He used heat from the crystals to repair their damaged circuits. He even rewrote parts of their programming using simple commands. There, he said when he was finished. Your systems should run much better now. The machines flew in smooth circles, testing their improved mobility. Their lights shone brighter and steadier. Thank you, Chief Engineer Kim, they said. You may take the crystals you need. We will remember your kindness. Jinho walked back to the ship with his pockets full of dilithium crystals. But more importantly, he had learned something. About the galaxy he lived in, even ancient alien machines could be lonely. Even hostile technology could become friendly if you took the time to understand it and treat it with respect. Back inside the ship, Veltar was amazed. You convinced the Guardians to let you take the crystals? I fixed them, Jinho said simply. Machines like to be fixed, even very old ones. He knelt beside Kale, who was breathing very weakly now. The blue fluid had almost stopped leaking, but only because there was not much left. Now comes the hard part, Jinho said. Making these crystals into something that can save your friend's life. Our grandfather used to tell stories about humans, Nara said through Veltar's translation. He said they could make anything work, even if it should be impossible. Let us hope your grandfather was right, Jinho said, examining the glowing crystals. Because what I am about to try has never been done before. Jinho worked through the night to save Kale's life. He built a forge from broken ship parts and powered it with dilithium crystals. The heat was so intense it turned the metal cherry red. Using pieces of the ship's hull as hammers, Jinho pounded the glowing crystals into thin sheets. The crystals were harder to work with than any metal he had ever used. They sparked and hissed when he hit them. But slowly they began to take shape. This is insane, he said to himself as sweat dripped down his face. I am trying to make alien biometal with a hammer and some crystals, but it was working. The shaped crystal sheets looked different now. They were still blue, but they had a metallic shine. When he touched them to the electronic parts of the ship, they conducted electricity perfectly. You are doing something that should be impossible, Veltar said in his mind. Our best engineers need complex machines to create biometal. Human engineers do not give up easily, Jinho replied out loud. He carefully placed the biometal sheets over Kale's cracked back plate. Using heat from smaller crystals, he welded the new metal to the dragon's body. The biometal bonded perfectly with both Kale's living tissue and his mechanical parts. The blue fluid stopped leaking. Kale's breathing became stronger and more regular. His eyes opened fully for the first time since Jinho had found him. Thank you, human, Kale said. His mental voice was weak but grateful. You have given me back my life. Do not thank me yet, Jinho said. Can you move? Kale slowly lifted his wing. The new biometal flexed with his movement. It was working perfectly. This is incredible, Nara said. The biometal you created is actually better than our original technology. It is more flexible and stronger. Jinho smiled tiredly. Sometimes simple solutions work better than complex ones. But their celebration was cut short. Red warning lights suddenly flashed throughout the ship. A loud alarm sounded. The dragons all lifted their heads in alarm. Ships, Veltar said urgently. Many ships coming from space. Friendly ships? Jinho asked. No, I recognize the energy signatures. It is Veximer. He has found us. Jinho ran to a viewing screen that was still working. Through the static, he could see dots of light in the purple sky. They were getting bigger quickly. How many ships? He asked. 15 battle cruisers. Maybe more. Veltara's mental voice was full of fear. We cannot fight them. Our ship is too damaged. The dots of light were now clearly visible as ships. They were huge and dark, with weapons bristling from their hulls. As Jinho watched, smaller ships launched. From the cruisers and headed toward the planet, landing craft, Kale said, Veximer is sending troops to capture us alive. Can your ship fly? Jinho asked. Not well enough to escape a battle fleet, Veltar replied. Even if we could take off, they would destroy us before we reach space. Jinho paced back and forth, thinking hard. 15 battle cruisers against one damaged ship. It was hopeless, unless ... Quostals, he said suddenly. The dilithium crystal formations, they conduct energy, right? Yes, but what does that matter now? How much energy can they handle? Could they conduct the electrical power from your biosystems? Theoretically, yes. But our bioelectrical systems are not weapons. They are just for powering our life support and communication. But what if we amplified them? What if we used the entire crystal network as one giant conductor? Veltar was quiet for a moment. You are suggesting we use the planet's crystal formations to create some kind of electrical pulse? Exactly. An electromagnetic pulse, strong enough to disable all their ships at once. That is ... that would require incredible coordination. And the feedback could kill us. Would it work, though? Jinho pressed. In theory. If we could synchronize our bioelectrical outputs and channel them through the crystals, we might be able to create a planet-wide EMP burst. But the power requirements would be enormous. The landing craft were getting closer. Jinho could see troops inside them through the transparent hulls. Soldiers in dark armor carrying weapons. How long do we have? Jinho asked. Maybe 10 minutes before they land. Jinho looked at the 3 dragons. Even with his repairs, they were still weak from their injuries. Can you do it? Can you generate enough power? Not alone, Veltar said. But if you could modify our biosystems to work together, to combine our electrical outputs ... like wiring batteries in series, Jinho said. To increase the voltage. He was already moving, gathering tools and crystal fragments. Where are your power regulation systems in our chest plates? But human, even if this works, the strain on our bodies could be fatal. And if we do nothing, Veximer will definitely kill you, Jinho pointed out. This is our only chance. You would risk our lives on a plan that has never been tried? Jinho stopped working and looked at Veltar directly. 3 hours ago, you were dying in a crashed ship. I fixed you with hammered crystals and spare parts. Sometimes the impossible is just another word for not tried yet. Nara made a sound that might have been laughter. He sounds like grandfather's stories about humans. What stories? Jinho asked while he worked on connecting their biosystems with crystal wires. Grandfather said humans never see problems, only puzzles waiting to be solved. He said where others see impossible, humans see Tuesday. Your grandfather was a smart dragon, Jinho said, making the final connections. There, you are now wired together like one big electrical generator. Through the viewing screen, they could see the first landing craft touching down in the desert. Dark figures poured out and began moving toward the ship. Jinho, Veltar said. Seriously, if this fails, I want you to know that you have shown us something we had forgotten. That courage and cleverness can overcome any obstacle. Save the speeches for after we survive, Jinho said. Are you ready? The 3 dragons positioned. themselves in a triangle around the crystal formation Jinho had wired into their ship's power systems. Their scales began to glow as they prepared to release their bioelectrical energy. One question, Kale said. How do you know this will disable their ships and not just make pretty lights in the sky? Jinho grinned. I do not. But I fixed your ancient Guardian machines. I made biometal from crystals, and I saved your lives with spare parts. So I figure the universe owes me one lucky break. Outside, Vexamer S troops were setting up weapons to blast through the ship's hull. Now or never, Jinho said. The dragons closed their eyes and began to glow like three small suns. The three dragons began to glow brighter and brighter. Blue electricity danced across their scales. The crystal formations outside started pulsing in rhythm with their heartbeats. Jinho watched the energy readings on his makeshift control panel. The numbers were climbing fast. Too fast. The power levels are getting dangerous, he said. Your biosystems are not designed for this much energy. We know, Veltar replied through gritted teeth. But we must try. Outside, Vexamer S troops were setting up a large weapon aimed at the ship. Jinho could see its barrel glowing with deadly energy. They are about to blast through our hull, he said. We need more power faster. We are giving everything we have, Nara said. Her silver scales were now blazing like a star. Jinho looked at his control panel again. The energy was building, but not fast enough. At this rate, the enemy would break into the ship before the EMP was ready. Then he had an idea. A terrible, dangerous idea. I can boost the signal, he said. How? Veltar asked. By adding my own electrical system to yours. Jinho, no. Humans are not built to handle bioelectrical energy like ours. It could kill you. Maybe, Jinho said, grabbing two crystal wires. But if I do not try, we are all dead anyway. Before the dragons could stop him, Jinho pressed the crystal wires against his skin. One on each arm, pain shot through his body like lightning. Every muscle tensed. His vision went white. But he held on to the wires. The energy readings on his panel jumped up dramatically. The human nervous system, though different from dragon bioelectricity, was still an electrical system. And electrical systems could be connected. Jinho. All three dragons called out in alarm. I am okay, he said through clenched teeth. Just hurts a lot? The crystal formations across the entire desert began to glow like blue fire. The network was charging up. The air itself started to hum with power, but something was wrong. The feedback from the crystals was getting stronger. Jinho could feel it burning through his arms and into his chest. The energy is too much, Kale warned. You have to let go. Not yet, Jinho gasped. Almost ready. Through the viewing screen he could see Vexamer S weapon charging up for a final shot. The troops were taking cover behind rocks. In the sky above, something huge blotted out the suns. Vexamer himself was landing. The Chancellor was a massive dragon, twice the size of Veltar. But he was more machine than living creature. Metal armor covered his scales. Weapon systems were built into his wings. His eyes glowed red like lasers. Brother, Vexamer's voice boomed across the desert. It was amplified by speakers built into his armor. Come out and face your death with honor. I will make it quick. He is not my brother, Veltar said angrily. He killed our father and destroyed our world. Vexamer landed near his troops. The ground shook under his weight. I know you are in that wreckage, young prince. And I know you have alien help. Surrender the human and I will let you die cleanly. How? Does he know about me? Jinho asked. His spies are everywhere, Nara replied. He probably knows everything that happened here. The energy in the crystal network was now at maximum. The whole desert looked like a sea of blue fire. But the feedback was getting worse. Jinho felt like his heart might stop. Now, he said, we have to do it now. Are you certain? Veltar asked. Once we release this much energy, there is no stopping it. I am certain, Jinho said. The three dragons looked at each other. Then together they nodded. For our father, Veltar said. For our people. Nara added, for the human who saved us all. Kale finished. They released every bit of bioelectrical energy in their bodies at once. The pulse that erupted from the crystal network was like a second sun being born. Blue light exploded outward in all directions. It traveled faster than sound, faster than sight. When the pulse hit Vexamer S ships in orbit, their engines died instantly. Their weapons powered down, their life support systems failed. One by one, the mighty battle cruisers began falling toward the planet like dead rocks. The pulse hit Vexamer S troops on the ground. Their armor stopped working, their weapons went silent. Even their communications failed, but Vexamer himself was different. His biomechanical systems were too advanced, too heavily shielded. The pulse hurt him, but it did not stop him. "Clever," he said, his voice now coming from his own throat instead of speakers, "but not clever enough." The massive dragon began walking toward the ship. Each step left deep prints in the sand. That was when the feedback surge hit. All the energy that had been sent out through the crystal network came rushing back. It flowed through the crystals, through the ship's systems and into the dragon's bodies. Veltar screamed. Nara collapsed. Kale's newly repaired biosystems began smoking, but the worst hit was Jinho. As the only non-dragon in the circuit, his body could not handle the returning energy. He felt his nervous system burning out. His heart stopped beating. "Jinho!" Veltar cried out without thinking. Jinho grabbed the crystal wires with both hands and redirected the deadly energy away from the dragons. He pulled it all into himself, using his body as a lightning rod to protect them. The pain was beyond description, but it worked. The dragons were safe. Jinho collapsed to the floor, his body smoking. He was not moving. "No," Nara whispered. "He saved. You saved us all." Outside, Vexamer reached the ship's hull and began tearing it apart with his metal claws. But then, something unexpected happened. The Guardian machines that Jinho had repaired came flying over the desert. Behind them came dozens more Guardian machines that had been sleeping deep in the crystal caves. "Chief Engineer Kim," they said in unison. "We will protect our friend." The Guardian machines swarmed Vexamer. Their weapons, recharged by the crystal network, fired in perfect coordination. Even the mighty Chancellor could not fight so many enemies at once, wounded and alone. Vexamer retreated to his damaged ship and fled the planet. 3 days later, Jinho woke up in a medical bay on a Galactic Union rescue ship. Veltar, Nara, and Kale were there, fully healed and smiling. "You were dead for 6 minutes," Veltar explained. "But our biomedical technology brought you back. It was the least we could do." "What happened to Vexamer?" Jinho asked weakly. "He escaped, but his fleet is destroyed. His army is stranded. It will take him years to rebuild his power. By then, we will be ready for him." 6 months later, Jinho stood in the engineering bay of the new Draconian Republic. Flagship. He wore the uniform of chief engineer, with dragon and human flags on his shoulders. Around him, teams of human and dragon engineers worked together on impossible projects. They were building ships that could travel between dimensions. They were creating biometals that could think. They were designing cities that lived and breathed. "Your people are remarkable," Nara said, joining him at the observation window. "In 6 months, you have revolutionized our entire civilization." "We learn from each other," Jinho replied. "Dragons taught us about biotechnology. Humans taught dragons about making do with what you have." "Speaking of making do," Kale said, floating up beside them, "the Andorian colonies have requested our help with a broken star. They say it is impossible to fix." Jinho grinned and picked up his toolkit. "Impossible? Sounds like Tuesday to me." As their ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying the legend of human ingenuity to the stars, Jinho thought about that day in the desert. He had been left to die by people who saw him as worthless, but sometimes being abandoned in the right place at the right time was exactly what the universe needed. The galaxy would never be the same.